Hi everyone, I'm Lisa.
And I'm Nick.
And you're listening to It Takes Two, the podcast where two people take two movies with the same plot or premise and watch and discuss them.
And in this episode, we watched Mr. Hannigan's Phone and The Black Phone.
Mr. Harrigan's Phone.
Harrigan. It is Harrigan. I'm wrong, yeah. Both movies revolving around killer phones.
Not really killer phones, they're
Phones that kill.
Kind of. Phones that teenagers use to communicate with the dead is what I was going to go with.
True. But then the phones kill people.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 Fair. That's a fair assessment.
Yeah, so you could either go with what you said, which is the phones you were able to communicate with the dead, or that the phones commit murder.
Yeah, so Mr. Harrigan's Phone is about how the first generation iPhones had a glitch in them that allowed you to communicate with ghost hitmen. And
I don't think that's actually officially Apple's statement.
I think that's what they were saying. I think that's I'm pretty sure that's the plot of the movie.
I think there was a throwaway line at the end, but okay.
Well, I mean, it didn't work on his second generation iPhone. It was only the first generation. I keep trying to say iPhone too quickly. The first generation iPhone was the only one where they had the ghost communicator glitch, allegedly.
Yes. A little bit more backstory. One of these movies is written by Stephen King's son.
Well, it's based on a short story by Stephen King's son.
And the other one is written by Stephen King.
Yes, based on a short story by Stephen King.
Yeah. Now, I have, like anybody, I have a bone to pick with Stephen King.
Oh, okay.
Every single one of his stories is in Maine, which is now just a meme. And he always comes up with the most ridiculous way that something's haunted or evil. It used to be a hotel, and then it was a dog, and now it's a phone. In Cell, it's all phones. Cell's actually a really good book. And the other bone I have to pick with Stephen King is he can never end anything properly, and all of his stories just sort of trail off into nothing, and you're like, that's the ending of the fucking book? Like, are you high? But yes, he was, when he wrote most of his books, he was high on cocaine. Cocaine will come up later in this.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I wonder, is that a nod?
Yeah. So yes, both of these movies are about killer phones, or people that can communicate with the dead.
Via phones.
Via phones, yeah. When you said about the Generation 2 iPhone, I thought it was the reason that he could communicate. Sorry, we're skipping around here, but that's fine.
That's fine.
You're not going to watch either of these movies, and I would not recommend you what?
Oh, they might watch these movies. They're both very recent movies. So I was going to say spoilers ahead. We've already we've kind of spoiled them already. It is, yeah, this is our spoopy season. Spoopy. I mean, our last episode was also spooky season. It was Red Eye and Flight Plan.
Yeah, those are more thrillers.
Yes.
So we have this, I say argument, but it's not. We have a disagreement. I say that horror movies should, to be a good horror movie, have some form of supernatural element.
I don't think so.
Because otherwise
what do you think of Scream? Scream is a horror movie. Where's the supernatural element in Scream?
The unbelievability of 30-year-olds playing teenagers at high school.
That's in every movie. Is Mean Girls a horror?
Sometimes.
No, you often argue that to be classed as a horror, a film needs to have supernatural elements, but that's not accurate.
It has to have some form of supernatural.
No, it's just not accurate to how the genre is.
No,
it's genuinely, that's not how the genre works. It doesn't have to have supernatural elements.
Name the longest running horror franchise.
I don't know. Halloween?
Yeah. And that's clearly supernatural.
Is it?
Because he's been trying to kill Jamie Lee Curtis for decades at this point.
Jamie Lee Curtis is a badass lady.
Yeah. But there are some supernatural elements in it. Obviously, with the murder phones.
Yes, there are supernatural elements to both of these films. They're definitely horrors, even by your standards of what a horror should be.
Both stories revolve around young white boys who become involved with a murder phone through other people dying. So in Mrs. Harrigan, Mr. Harrigan.
You're thinking of Mrs. Hannigan now.
Yeah. Those Mrs. Higgins. No. I'm completely lost. I was thinking about brownies for a second. So he's like a rich old man, and he sees Craig.
Yeah, Craig.
Craig read in church, and he's all like, I'm going to employ that boy to read to me because my eyes are going. And then after like several years of him reading to him, he's like in high school, and then he gets an iPhone so he can hang out with the iPhone clique. And then he ends up he wins like $3,000 on a scratchy because apparently his thing is he gives like $1 Red Devil scratchies to people as gifts, which for a billionaire is a dick move.
Yeah.
It's really weird. That's I don't know many billionaires. I don't know any actually. But if like for a gift they gave me a $1 scratchy, it's like that. Have you seen Kingsman?
Kingsman, yeah.
You remember when like he turns up to have like dinner with the billionaire who's played by Samuel L. Jackson, and they have McDonald's. It's like I don't know what's up with like either, because I was watching a really weird short this morning that's related, which is about what billionaires have for breakfast, and apparently Bill Gates just has like Cocoa Puffs. But then Jeffrey Bezos eats squid.
Oh.
Which
is one extreme to the other.
Yeah. But then, as we all know, Jeffrey Bezos is a dragon.
Oh, I think you just... well, I was going to say is not a human.
Yeah.
Maybe he is a squid.
Why would a squid eat other squid? You're thinking of he'd be a killer whale. No, a sperm whale.
Exert dominance.
Exert. What a squid breather. He's an isopod descendant like, I was going to say Harry.
You know about Resident Alien?
Yeah.
This is my plug then. Everyone watch Resident Alien. It's a great show.
Keep that show going.
Yeah, yes. Please do not cancel. I can't see another cancelled Alan Tudyk show.
You can't perceive a future without Resident Alien. So yeah, he gets him a lottery ticket. He ends up winning $3,000, and then when he spends some of the $3,000, it's on a phone for this guy so they can text, and then because the movie it starts in what did we say?
2003 it starts.
So it starts in 2003, then they jump to 5 years later, so he's been working for the guy for 5 years.
Yeah.
And then there's a weird plug about the dangers of the internet.
Yes, and it's like so weirdly shoehorned into it.
Yeah.
Because he like teaches the old man how to use an iPhone. It's actually really sweet sequence. Like
that's a cute moment of like, here's how you can look at stocks because the guy's a businessman.
Yeah.
Here's like in financial news, and then like in a later time he's just like, my search results are coming back. They predicted what I know, what I want to look at. It's clearly evil because they're not selling ad revenue, and that's how newspapers make money. So clearly they're going to put everything behind paywalls, and you're like, yes, that's already happened. Like this movie's made now.
Yeah, a movie made in 2022 about someone predicting 2022 in 2008.
Yeah.
Like it's not a shocker. If it was made in 2008 and they said all that stuff, you'd be like, whoa, that's so, they're really thinking about it.
Or you'd look back at it and be like, oh my God, they were right, man.
Yeah. But it's like, we know. But there's no reason for this old man who didn't understand the internet 3 minutes ago to know.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Where the black phone is set in 1978.
Yes.
So the phone that's involved in the black phone is an old rotary phone that is on a wall in a child murder dungeon. but that's...
Neither here nor there.
Yeah. Just your casual child murder dungeon in the 1970s.
Yeah. I mean, there were a lot of those around.
The Black Phone definitely had better soundtrack.
Yeah, apparently the writer-director literally said to the... I didn't take this down as a note, but I'm going to try to remember what it said, but he said to the composer, I want this to sound like childhood fear.
I just thought it sounded like the 70s. I think the childhood fear came in the 80s if I listened to my mother and talking about Bay of Pigs and stuff like that. The 70s and 80s were a time, folks. If you weren't alive then, speak to somebody who was.
I wasn't alive then.
I was alive in the 80s.
Yeah.
The both the main characters, I think Craig and Finn being from the Black Phone is Finn's a little bit more of a developed character, and I'll say this in every single movie that has children talking to other children, I don't think writers remember what it's like to be a kid because their dialogue in every single freaking movie that I've ever seen, except for maybe Little Mamas.
Oh yeah, Petit Maman.
Petite Maman.
That was, yeah.
They all have really terrible child dialogue, and it's so frustrating because it pulls you out of the... For me anyway, it pulls me out of the movie because it's like there's a difference between teenage dialogue and children's dialogue, and Finn is definitely, and his sister who's younger than him, are definitely children.
Yeah, well, he's a teenager. He's 13.
Yeah,
so he's a young teenager. But I'd say he looks 13.
Yeah.
So they must have cast an actual 13-year-old, presumably, to play. But yeah, the sister's younger.
And she has
11-ish.
a mouth on her like a sailor.
Yes.
The amount of violence, like I'm obviously I'm not an American, and I wasn't a 13, that age in the 70s. I don't know kids ran around screaming profanities all the time. It seems like a very modern thing to put in dialogue these days. I'm not saying that it didn't happen.
Yeah, I'm not sure, especially because you're mentioning violence. Just because I know that the guy who adapted The Black Phone, most of the fleshing out he based on his own childhood and his own childhood memories, including the violent father and everything. And
so that makes sense because I can imagine there being a lot of domestic violence because there wasn't a lot of help for people, especially because also the weird similarity is both these movies are mum's dead.
Yeah.
Which I think sort of leads to the whole shitty childhood for a boy because fathers, especially in that era when you can't just Google solutions to issues, and obviously from Craig's father's a little bit better because I think it's set in a more modern era and they didn't have... Because, if you were a dad in the 70s, that means your dad was either involved with or fought during World War II, which basically means that your childhood was probably fucked up in the nicest way possible because, you look at how the generations change and there has been a real huge shift towards positive parenting in the last sort of, I'd say 20 years, so from the 90s onwards, and I think probably that leads to the differences between the father and the relationships the father has. But it's
I think Craig's father can be quite distant though as well, because he touches on that in it that his dad or he has to remind himself that no matter how sad he is feeling about his mother, his dad is also feeling it.
Yes, that's explainable.
Yeah.
But like,
whereas in the Black Phone, I think they also try to play a very sad man.
Yeah.
I don't think he's supposed to be a villain, even though obviously he is.
Yeah, like you could make an entire movie just about the relationship between like the family.
Yeah.
Without even having, and I think it was probably very common in that era. You could make an entire, movie and like one of those broken family thought pieces where the daughter ends up running away and the son ends up blah blah blah, and then coming back and then reuniting maybe over the dad's death because of his alcoholism. Like, who knows? But there you go, writers, there's a plot point for you. But yeah, just like that kind of violence, like being such a drunk that you hit your own kids, is really unforgivable. And especially because it's like I know it's a product of the time, but like still, it's who's the real villain? The grabber who locks kids up and murders them, or the dads who beat their daughters because I don't even remember why he was beating her.
I think, honestly, and this is maybe interpretation, I think she reminded him too much of her mother.
Oh, okay.
Because there was like
that's right,
the dreams and things.
Because they've both got the shine.
Basically, yeah, they both got the shine. Yeah. It's interesting because apparently a few people suggested, no one put pressure on, but a few people suggested to the writer-director Scott Derrickson, I think is his name. I'll check it in a minute. I've got it written down, but I'm just rambling at the moment. Apparently, a few people suggested to him that he cut out the scenes where the father whipped the daughter.
Yeah. And
what he said to them was, "That's not even illegal right now."
It is illegal in New Zealand.
Yeah. Yes, but not in the United States.
Yeah, true.
So he was like, "Why would I need to cut it out when it's legal for parents to still be doing that?"
Yeah, true.
So I think he's making a little bit of a point with it, but also very much it's based on his own childhood. Because one of the other things it said about his childhood was, so he grew up at the time that Ted Bundy was active.
Yeah.
His next door neighbor was murdered when he was a child, and at one point he actually had a phone call himself as a child or teenager with one of the Manson family murderers.
Nice.
So he had a lot of, murder was around during his childhood.
Yeah.
And violence was around. So he said the direct quote was, "The primary emotion that I associate with my own childhood is fear."
It's an interesting statement that you just made, because the reality is, in this modern day and age, like, murder is not stopped.
No, yeah.
And, unless... Like, New Zealand, in my opinion, did it right. We had one incident with a mass shooting, and the government was just like, "Cool, you're no longer allowed to own anything that doesn't have a purpose other than killing people."
Yeah.
And everyone handed their guns in. Wow. People who follow the law handed their guns in. It's we don't want to get into it because this is a long conversation that any of our American listeners should be having with their governors and senators and whoever else represents you. I don't remember how the weird tiered system works in the States at the moment. Off the top of my head, that means. Mm-hmm. But the violence never stops. And I think these days, with the access to the internet and the fact that we get borderline unfiltered information pretty much 24/7, it really throws a spotlight on the fact that this is constantly happening.
Mm-hmm. This is what Mr. Harrigan was warning us about.
Yeah. The characters Finn and Craig also differ on the fact that Finn comes off as like the regular school, like the regular child. Like he is like, other than his domestic life and obviously the fact that he has the shine. They if you don't know what I'm referencing, watch The Shining.
Yeah, basically.
He's a cookie cutter. I was going to say cutty cooker.
He's a cookie cooker.
Cookie cutter kid. So like basically interchangeable. Like he has the same shitty. Like he's not popular. He gets bullied at school.
He's not a nerd.
He's just like run of the mill. Like
yeah, just regular average kid.
B's and C's. Where I think Craig comes off. Obviously, you know, he spends 3 days a week with a billionaire. He hangs out with the popular people because he's got an iPhone. Even the people that he, like his other people, the other freshmen that he had orientation with U-Boat, which was a hilarious, like, why is that? It's never explained in the movie why that guy's nickname is U-Boat. You know, the weird, angry goth kid that just beats him, like, was he, like, just...
Yeah, I don't know.
Trying to make him eat shoe polish, like, yeah. What? Okay.
His name was Yankovic, which is the only thing I remember.
Yeah, Kenny.
Kenny Yankovic. Yeah, because I just remember like, oh, like Weird Al. Yeah. The only other person with that name I know.
The reason I bring this up is because he's like in high school, and the only female that he seems to have any connection with is the teacher.
Well, he's also got the girl that he texts with. Yeah,
but he literally gets taken to the dance with her, and he's like, oh, I like her, but not that way.
No, that's not what happened.
Yes, it was.
No, he thought that his other friend was going to ask him. The girl that he did orientation with.
Oh, right.
You've misinterpreted that. He wanted to be asked by the iPhone girl.
Yeah.
Before his other friend asked, so that he wouldn't have to turn her down, you know, without an excuse.
Right.
Because he didn't like her like that.
Right.
Yes.
Also, not a healthy relationship if the only way you communicate with somebody is via text message.
Yes,
because
100%.
Literally, there's a scene where they are lockers down from each other, and he looks and sees her and goes, nice sweater, and she texts him back.
She texts him asking him to the dance from across the table. And they never, do they say a word to each other the whole film? Or just when he gets beaten up and she comes out?
No, because she says, I'm going to have to go to the bathroom. And he's like, I'll walk with you. And then he gets beaten up by Kenny.
Right, true. The whole phone situation I said that, but like both films are just entirely phone situations. No, the whole, like, in Mr. Harrigan's phone, when he doesn't have a cell phone when he goes to high school in 2008, and he, only the cool kids hang out in this one room, and they're the cool kids because they have mobile phones, they have cell phones, and there's like one table for the Samsung, one table for the Motorola's, and one table for the iPhones, and he wants to hang out with that girl, so then his dad buys him an iPhone, so then he can sit at her table, and then they can interact because they both have iPhones.
Yeah.
That is, like, this is one of the things, I said it to you, I think, while we were watching the movie, that every now and then I come across things in movies where I'm like, I don't know if this is terrible writing or if it's just a weird American thing. Because to me, that just comes across as a weird scene written by someone who absolutely was not a teenager in the 2000s, who thinks this is what teenagers did in the 2000s. Because I was a teenager in the 2000s, and that's not even remotely accurate to any experience I've ever had. We didn't have like cliques of people who had the same phone and just sit and text each other from across the table. Like, that's not how that worked. And I don't know, is that just somehow what they were doing in the States? Is it like a rural American thing, or is it just written by people who don't understand how teenagers in the 2000s worked?
I'm going to go with option B there.
I mean, our American listeners are Please enlighten us if you have insight into that.
If there were clicks for different phone brands in the early 2000s, leave it in the comments.
Mid to late 2000s, I think.
Talking of comments.
Oh yeah, I was going to leave this to the end, but yeah, we can talk about this now.
Yeah.
We have set up a Discord server.
And the reason we've set up a Discord server is because we want to hear from you, because we have access to a map, and the map shows us where our listeners are, and we would like you to join our Discord, which Lisa will attach somewhere.
There'll be a link in the show notes.
Yeah, because we want to know where you're from and where you're listening from, because that, from, being from a small country in the middle of the Pacific, obviously Ireland's a lot more central.
Yeah, Ireland is also a small island nation, but it's closer to mainland Europe than New Zealand is to literally anywhere.
Yeah. You can be in France in like an hour, in New Zealand you can't.
I think actually, if you fly, maybe it is only an hour. No, I think it's a 2-hour flight and slightly longer on the ferry, but still, it's negligible.
It's nothing.
Yeah, it's less than half what it would take to get to Australia from here, and Australia is the only place remotely near here.
So we're far away.
Yeah, so we wanna talk more with our listeners. So if you have Discord or you're willing to join Discord, the link will be in the show notes, as I said, which should be on any platform that you're listening to us on. And then you can click that old link, join our Discord server, let us know where you're from. We've got a members introductions thing. It's very quiet at the moment, but that's because this is the first time we're mentioning it anywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'd love to chat with you.
Yeah, it's because it's interesting where you see like Hawaii pop up, and like where else was super weird. There was like one person in Libya. Yeah, I think. We've got a few in Japan, a few in Brazil, South Africa, all over Europe. Yeah, got a lot of European listeners, a lot of American listeners. And now you have the ability to tell me I'm wrong, and I will accept it because it'll be there for everyone to see.
Or you can have an argument with Nick.
Yeah, good luck with that. I'm great. I can argue for hours. It's the black phone obviously has more of a like. I don't think we've even touched on like.
What the actual plot of the black phone is?
Yeah, like either of them. Because you have okay, so he gets the phone,
Mr. Harrigan's phone.
Mr. Harrigan's phone gets a phone, he dies, they have the same phone, and then he can communicate with him after he's dead.
Yeah, so Craig puts Mr. Harrigan's phone. So it starts off, the first communication is actually that he walks in and finds Mr. Harrigan dead, and he thinks he's asleep, and he nudges him, and then his phone starts ringing. Yeah. At the same moment that he realizes he's dead, and he looks down and he's holding the phone. Yeah. And he's called him, and they've got special ringtones for each other, like so he knows it's him calling. And then he puts Mr. Harrigan's phone in the coffin with him. Yeah.
And the weird part is he left him a voicemail message about how he enjoyed the time that they spent together.
He texted him. It was a text message. Because he was able to double check it then after.
Yeah. So he messages him and says, I really enjoyed the time we spent together.
And he says, I will miss our afternoons together.
Yeah. And then he gets a letter that was written before he died that says, I also enjoyed our weekends together. And you're like...
No, it says, I will miss our afternoons together too.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so it's like... So it could be perceived as just like, on top of all this other stuff I've said... I'll miss our afternoons together too. But because it's written, it's the exact same phrasing as what he said, it freaks him out. Yeah. And then he gets text message, which is just a bunch of letters, and his dad has to explain to him, because he wants to dig up the body, he thinks, oh my god, we buried him alive, and he's like, no, he died on his own, so they did an autopsy, he's been cut open, like he's definitely dead, his organs were, pulled out and stuff, and...
It's interesting because, we watched a couple of videos. I can't remember which Q something. There's a YouTube channel we watch where it has like they interview experts in something about something, and there's that really charismatic Mortician.
Yeah, I like that guy. I don't know his name.
And it's just like, no, you can't be buried alive because we literally suck all your blood out and replace it with, like, poisonous stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, so basically that's what, you know, Craig's dad is explaining to him. He's like, I didn't want to, you know, give you these details, but I'd rather you know this than think that we buried your friend alive.
Yeah. The other thing that I found interesting is he calls an ambulance.
Yep.
And after what shout out to Phil, what your mother said, when you find a dead body, don't do that.
Yeah, yes, if you call an ambulance, I don't know if it's the same everywhere, but certainly in Ireland, if you call an ambulance to the scene, they are legally obliged to attempt to resuscitate the person. And if it's a situation where a person has been dead for several days and it's clear that they've been dead for several days, it's not pleasant for the paramedics or the ambulance workers to have to try and resuscitate that person knowing that it's not going to do anything.
Find a skeleton, like, ring an ambulance.
So if you're able to call the police and say to them, I found this body, they are definitely dead.
Yeah.
Then they won't need to send the ambulance, they won't need to do that.
It'd be interesting to see if that's the same in the States.
In the States. It would make sense, I think. And I think maybe that's what... I think that might have been the intention of the dad, because the guy had only been on his own for a short amount of time.
Yeah.
And he was on an oxygen machine, and also it's this teenager finding him. The teenager might not be able to accurately diagnose someone as deceased.
But he does the mirror trick.
Yeah, he does do the mirror trick to check his breath. Which I thought was funny because there's clearly it sounded like there was oxygen pumping into him the whole time. I thought like he'd turn off the oxygen because he's going to explode. I don't think that's how it works.
No, it doesn't have the pressure I don't think
But I would have thought then if it's... Because it sounded... I don't think those machines normally work... normally you have to breathe with them, I think, whatever. They don't normally just pump oxygen into you. But it sounded like that's what it was doing. So I was surprised that no air came... Because it would have made sense if there was oxygen coming out of that machine for it to reflect on the thing. But I guess it wouldn't be warm.
Yeah. Let's jump ahead. So now we've got... he's now... is it Keith Sutherland?
Donald Sutherland.
What's me with mixing up dads and sons at the moment?
We just pray we never have to do a Brendan Gleeson film.
I'm not even going to answer that statement. Donald Sutherland is now possessed in the iPhone and is able to kill from beyond the grave.
Yeah.
And
that's the whole rest of the movie, pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just him being bullied by people.
Yeah,
and
so it's
ordering their deaths.
He tells Donald Sutherland about this guy. Donald Sutherland kills the guy, and then he's like, "Oh shit, I didn't mean for you to kill him." And then he gets angry at someone, and he calls Donald Sutherland and is like, "I want you to kill him." And then he kills him, and he's like, "Oh shit, Donald Sutherland killed him," and he's shocked by it.
Yeah.
End of movie.
Yeah. Kenny eats shoe polish and falls out of a building. The drunk driver who kills the teacher.
I thought,
swallows fancy soap.
Yeah, because she smelled like the soap.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought the teacher was a Harrigan murder. I thought it was because clearly Craig was horny for the teacher.
Yeah, that's like I said. If it wasn't for your little, because my brain got crossed over.
Yeah, with the two girls.
I thought he was definitely on the spectrum. I wouldn't say he came off to me as gay, but I'm saying that he was definitely
you think he was asexual?
Yeah, I think he was attracted to people rather than a gender.
Right.
And that's why the only time that
demisexual.
Yeah, it's the only time that he actually had what I would say is what a teenage boy does, which is they talk really fast and they're just all over the place.
Yeah, is with the teacher.
Because you make as a boy who was a boy at one point, as a man who was a boy, I was a real boy. The commenting on weird stuff about somebody's, like, not appearance, but, like, the fact that he's like, you smell really nice.
Yeah.
That's such a boy thing to say to, like, a person he's interested in.
Yeah, I'm sure she knows that. She's a teacher who's teaching teenage boys.
Yeah.
Which is why she kind of plays it down and is like, oh yeah, you should buy it for your... I think she was going to say you should buy it...
Mom, yeah.
Yeah, she was going to say mom, and she was like, you buy it for your... you could buy it for anyone.
You can buy it for anybody.
Yeah, so I thought that her... Because she dies in a car accident. I thought that was a Donald Sutherland killing. I thought it was because the kid... So Craig moved away, and then the teacher got engaged. I thought that he was, like, mad on his behalf that the girl he liked was engaged to someone else, and so like when he was like, he got the phone call and it was like she was in an accident. I was like, oh, like the other guy, she was in an accident.
Maybe.
But then it was a setup for him to be mad at the drunk driver and get him killed. So
he is the most blatant drunk driver too.
It was so stupid.
The real casual, just drinking like hard spirits.
Yeah. Drops
the lid. Like, if you're that drunk and there was like maybe 3 to 4 I don't know what, it doesn't show you what alcohol it is, but it looked like bourbon, like
you just drink the end of it and toss it. Like, you wouldn't be bending over. It's listen, I have a lot of problems with the writing in Mr. Harrigan's phone. I will say 100% I preferred one of these films over the other.
Was it the black phone?
Yes. I enjoyed the black phone much more. You didn't like either, is that the vibe I'm getting?
Yeah, I have an issue with a lot of horror movies, and it is usually unbelievability, people acting really stupid. Like, I have a note in here, which is near the end of the black phone, which is actually calling the police in a horror movie.
I was so glad when the kid went back, when she like found what she thought was where her brother was being kept, and she was like, all right, I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna call the police. I was like, oh my god, you sweet child, thank you for calling the police and not just going in there as an 11-year-old girl and thinking you can save him.
The reason I have an issue with both these movies, obviously there's a lot of weirdness in the other one, but the reason I have an issue with the black phone is you actually get quite a stellar performance, and I think that should have been Ethan Hawke should have been, because he plays the grabber, which is a terrible name for a serial killer. His motivations aren't very clear. Like, when you go through and you have a look at any cases, like your true crime podcasts, any of those things that are on Netflix, which they try and, where psychologists trying to explain to us regular people why serial killers do what they do. There's usually childhood trauma, which causes them to become attached to a certain thing, which can unfortunately be a sexual reason, or they're craving something that they can't get without committing violent acts. And the grabber, who Ethan Hawke's performance, his posture, his presence on the screen, the masks that he's wearing, all of that is fantastic.
He's so good.
But the writing around him as the character is really weak.
I think it is implied. I think it's all implicit. I don't think they never really explain, but it's implicit. And then I don't know. I feel like him having a brother in the movie it kind of diminishes the point a little bit, because I think it is a childhood trauma thing.
Yeah.
Because his whole thing is that, he puts the kids there and, he's acting like he's looking after them, but he leaves them the opportunity to escape because he wants them to go against what he's told them.
Yeah.
Because, as the kids put it, he likes to play naughty boy.
Yeah.
So he wants the so he's targeting teenage boys. So presumably some trauma related to when he was a teenage boy.
Yeah.
And he wants them to try to sneak out so that he can catch them and punish them.
Yeah.
And it's all this cyclical stuff with the corporal punishment, with like the way Finney's dad was and stuff at the beginning. And one would assume that Ethan Hawke's character's father was the same way, and that's
Which
why
is what I was saying about being his father probably was a Vietnam, a World War II veteran.
Possibly, yeah. But then why isn't the brother?
Yeah, the brother's just on like a conspiracy theorist putting friggin' string between newspaper clippings and snorting cocaine.
Yeah, while on cocaine, that's what I was going to say. So the brother, but then again, that comes up because massive spoiler alert, big spoiler alert, spoiling near the end of the movie, so don't listen to this if you haven't watched it and you're planning to watch it, because it is a decent movie. He ends up killing his own brother.
Yeah.
And when he does that, he gets mad at Finney over it, and he's like, he was an idiot, but he was my idiot.
Yeah.
So it might have been a case of he was stupid and didn't comprehend things to the same degree, or didn't experience it to the same degree, and maybe the grabber was the older brother and protected him a bit.
Probably from the beatings his father.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was my reading into it, but maybe I'm just giving it more credit than it's due.
Yeah, you're adding story to the story to make the story better, which is bad writing, folks.
But I don't know, because I think because I mean it is set around a time that there was a lot of high profile serial killers in rural America.
Yeah.
And I don't know that people necessarily found out the exact reasons why these people did what they did. So I don't know if it was, to me, as important to know the exact motivations behind it.
Yeah.
What I really liked about what they did do is, because like halfway through or 3/4 of the way through this, I don't think we've even said what happened, that Finney is, or there's like kids are going missing, and then Finney is kidnapped, and then he's in a basement, and then there's a phone, and he's talking to the previous victims, and they're all, and the phone is not connected to anything, they're all ghosts.
Yeah, he's got the shine.
He's got the shine. Because they say the phone rang every time, but none of us heard it. You heard it.
Yeah.
But every time he speaks to a different kid on the phone, they try to give him a way to get out.
Yeah.
And it never works.
Yeah.
And like halfway through this, or 3/4 of the way through the movie, I was sitting there thinking, why is he even doing all these? Because like he's getting advice from people who
are dead.
People who didn't make it out of the situation. True. He's like, these are what they tried, and it didn't work for them, but I'm gonna try it. And then in the climactic sequence where he does get out, he uses every single thing they said on the phone to him.
Yeah.
Every single thing they said, he uses.
The best part about it is that he uses the phone to kill him.
Yes, he uses the phone to kill him.
And again, like Lisa said, spoilers, when he's choking him, the ankle break was amazing.
Yes, so good.
When he's choking him with the phone cable, and then the phone rings, and Ethan Hawke also knows the phone's ringing.
Yeah, because they had mentioned that earlier. They said he hears it too, but he doesn't believe in it.
Yeah. He literally holds the phone up to his ear while he's choking. He's like, it's for you. And they all the boys talk together, and they're like, he's going to kill you, you piece of shit.
But they all repeat. I thought that was fantastic, because they all repeat lines they had said
to Finn.
Yeah, previously. And they one or two of them, they change the wording slightly, but they repeat. Like, there's these things that they said on the phone to Finn that at the time you're like, okay, whatever. And then they all say it to him, and it was their words to him.
Yeah.
It was what they wanted to say to him if they were going to kill him. So I thought it was, I don't know, there were definitely elements of it that were really well done.
Yeah, there were definitely small parts of the movie that were well done.
I enjoyed it. I can see, because the Black Phone is the higher rated of the two, and I can see why. It's
just, for me, the pacing's weird. For a better example, the spoilers for a really good movie the 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Oh, yes.
The kidnapping part is very enjoyable, and it is, from the movie point of view, it's very enjoyable. Not like I enjoy people getting kidnapped. The ending's weird.
Yes, the ending is weird in 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Yeah.
Agreed.
But the lead up to the ending, which is a weird, twisty ending bit, that is fantastic, and the pacing of it is a lot better. Because it's just like being locked up somewhere. And I can talk from experience because I've played hostages in training exercises in the past. It's boring. It's really boring. You're just sitting and waiting around for something to happen.
Right.
There's not this constant, obviously there was no magical shine phone. And also
or you don't have the shine.
And I also wasn't digging in walls to end up in a freezer to get meat to get the dog away at the end of it.
Yeah, but that wasn't what his point of going to the freezer was.
Yeah, but
he was trying to get out through the freezer, but how it actually connected in the end was a way to get the dog out of the way.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of sitting around doing nothing and, not drinking out of toilet cisterns and digging holes in walls. But
so you would have liked a slower pacing on the Black Phone?
No, I just think the time movement should have been little bit more disorientating for the viewer, because the time frame for the victim of the kidnapping will just be constant lulls in nothingness and fear, followed up by something happening, and that's when that's the moment that something happens, and then you go back to just the fear of something about to happen.
Right.
I think the best movie to pull it off, in my opinion, is Silence of the Lambs.
Right, okay.
Because she's just in the well waiting for an opportunity, and that's when you've seen it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. I'm this relationship is over. Yeah, that is a better showing of the person in there trying to figure out how to escape, but not being so, the film being focused on them. So if the sister who also has the shine running around and investigating stuff, there was no police work for a movie with two detectives in it.
Yeah,
there's no FBI involvement.
Yeah, they were just letting the sister tell them what her dreams were and then acting on that. Yeah. Which is not quite how that works. But then again, I get, I think it was happening behind the scenes. I think the focus of the movie was these kids. Yeah. So, presumably some police work happened, but they just didn't show it in the movie. But, yeah, I don't know.
Like I said, it's just, for me, the pacing's weird.
That's fair enough. Yeah, but that was very much because they were cutting to the sister and her weird shine dreams. Yeah. If they cut the sister out of that movie.
Because what was the one we watched recently with Jake Gyllenhaal and
Prisoners. Oh, Prisoners is such a good movie.
Because that has better pacing when it comes to people being locked up. Much better pacing, because it's time's moving in a weird way to make the watcher, I was going to say listener, the watcher disorientated, because you're trying to show, if you're a serial killer and you've got kids that are locked in your basement, you're going to be doing what you normally do so you don't show off as a suspect. Yeah. And it shows very well in Prisoners. Yeah. But, does anybody have a job?
In the Black Phone? I don't know, it's weird because the brother says that he's gone to work. He had to go into work. Yeah. But, we never actually see him, actually working. But then also, if he doesn't work, how does he own two houses? Yeah, it's a bit weird. Yeah. And his brother obviously doesn't work or isn't working at the moment because he's visiting him. He's living in a different town and visiting him. But if that's the case, how is the brother not seeing the kids being, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's very, yeah, it's a bit weird. Yeah, it could definitely be improved upon, but in comparison to Mr. Harrigan's Phone, I know which one I would watch again.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if you want to talk about pacing issues...
Oh, my God.
Mr. Harrigan's Phone is like, just some coming-of-age drama, and then it's like, oh my God, it's spooky for 10 seconds. Now it's a coming-of-age drama for 30 minutes, and now it's spooky for 10 minutes, and now it's a coming-of-age drama.
Yeah, for the first hour, nothing happens in that movie.
Yeah.
Nothing relevant to what the movie's about happens in that movie.
Yeah.
Yes, it's very weird.
Yeah, I mean, there's no plot. In my opinion, there's no... And that's not necessarily a bad thing in general, but I think it's very hard to make a compelling movie that has no actual, plot happening.
Yeah.
I watched, since we're referencing other films that are better, on one of the planes, I watched 8th Grade, which I think is written and directed by Bo Burnham, and it's literally just about a teenager, just a snapshot of 1 year in high school.
Yeah.
Or middle school, is it? I don't know how American school works. I think 8th grade is middle school, and then she's going into high school. I think that's how it works. And not much happens. It's one, but it is a compelling character study, and it's really interesting, and it was enjoyable to watch. So Mr. Harrigan's Phone, it is possible to make a compelling film about where there's not a whole lot of plot happening, but I don't think they achieved it, in my opinion.
We watched a lot of movies recently, mainly because we were on planes for 36 hours twice.
I don't know if people who listen to us but don't follow us on social media are aware of that. This is our first time recording in a couple of months. I know there hasn't been a gap because...
we did a lot of pre-work before we left.
We pre-recorded a bunch of episodes, and then we left the country for a month. And we went to my brother's wedding and travelled around Ireland for a month. So this episode, we're recording it less than a week before it's released. Yeah,
which is an unusual one for us.
But last week's episode, or 2 weeks ago when this was released, was recorded at the beginning of August.
Yeah.
Because we did a bunch of pre-recording at the end of July, beginning of August.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that was fun.
But we did watch a lot of weird movies.
We watched a lot of movies in the last while.
Was there any highlights for you in those weird movies? Because for me, there are perfect movies to watch on a plane.
Yeah.
My perfect example of that.
You watched Morbius.
I watched. It was Morbin time, and the first Morbin, I fell asleep, so I had to morb again.
I don't understand why you've watched it a second time.
Well, I didn't see the ending of it.
I watched a movie.
You watched that ambulance movie.
Oh God, I did watch the ambulance movie. That was not enjoyable. Like I said, 8th Grade was good. I watched... oh no, hang on. It was on the first... I'm looking at my... Because I can't remember the name of the movie that I watched.
Well, while you look at that, I'm going to...
Nowhere Special was the name of the movie. And it was an Irish movie about a single father who is terminally ill. And his son is, I think, 3 years old. And he's interviewing potential adoptive parents to give his son to.
Oh, that's an interesting, heartfelt movie. And was it really good?
It was really sad.
Oh. Does that make it good?
But it was like these, like I was saying, it is another movie that doesn't necessarily have a lot of plot happening because it's just the same thing happening over and over again. It's just but a really compelling character, really compelling stories, and you really feel for this guy and his son, and it's interesting because the successful, the person that he chooses to adopt the child in the end, I'm not going to give spoilers, but from the second they're on screen, they're a compelling character, and you're just like, oh, I hope he chooses this person,
Versus what that lady in front of you watched, which was Everest 3 times in a row.
Yes, the person in front of me watched Everest 3 times in a row. Yeah, I don't know. I watched a lot of movies on those. That was the one that really stuck out to me, I think.
Because I watched a TV show, and I can't remember who produces it, but I haven't been able to access it, which was Raised by Wolves.
Oh, yeah.
Which was like some weird high-level sci-fi stuff that got cancelled, and I can see why it got cancelled, because obviously the studio, the producers, the writer would have got into it real heavy, and sometimes like I haven't watched all of Foundation yet, but like I was like instantly not put off, but just like, okay, like it's not. I think the serial is dead.
Right.
And I think that's a big issue when it comes to science fiction these days.
Is it though? I mean, Resident Alien.
Resident Alien's the same plot line. Just stuff happens to him. He's still like spoilers, but spoilers. I'm not even gonna spoil it. It's too good. You have to watch it.
Yeah, Resident Alien is great. I love Resident Alien.
But you know, like we pick a something with star in the beginning of it. Mm-hmm. Every episode, like you get established characters, and characters get established, and then returning characters get established, and then they just go on adventures. Star Trek, Stargate. I wouldn't say Mandalorian season 1 was very much like that. Mm. And I think the problem is that people write these big overarching stories that should be TV shows because they would be terrible movies, but as a watcher of it, you're sort of just like, I'm tired now, why can't they just have a like relaxing beach episode where they go to the Paradise Planet or something? Like, why does every episode have to be escalation on the previous episode?
Yeah, you gotta get your filler episodes.
And when the first episode starts at a 10, you can't go anywhere from that.
Right.
And I feel like you, as an audience member, you just get exhausted.
That's fair enough. I think that's why I've ended up not watching much long-form television shows anymore. I tend to watch mini-series if I'm going to watch something.
Yeah, like the perfect example of that, I think, with the perfect pacing and escalation would be Dark.
Dark is so good. Dark is incredible. If anyone hasn't watched Dark, watch Dark.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a sci-fi fan.
Do not watch it with English dubs.
No, yeah. English dubs are bad, so you do need to watch it in German with the subtitles.
Yeah, because they keep the original names, and it is so off-putting, because I watched half of the first episode.
Do they? So they're just like, hey y'all, my name is Jonas Kanwald.
Yeah.
I love that.
Because it's like really bad American accents with then Jonas as like, and you're like, what?
You're like, I'm gonna go time travel with Jonas.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, Dark is a very, very good show.
We've gone completely off track here. Yeah. It's been a while, folks. It's been a while.
It's all right. I think we've covered off everything we really need to say about the movies. To be honest, there's no budget box office comparison because
one of them's a Netflix and the other one's a.
No, the Black Phone. I don't know what the.
It was like Amazon.
No. Black Phone was a theatrical release.
Oh.
Whoops. And it was funny because they did their, so it was released, it was a summer release in Northern Hemisphere. It was released in June, actually. I had thought it was August, but maybe it was August here. When I looked it up, it said June, but it was supposed to be released in January. And then when they did tests for it, it tested way better than the studio thought it was going to. So they pushed it to be a summer release, because they get better box offices with summer releases. So it has actually done, I know you don't like it, but it had done really well in the box office.
I don't say I didn't like it, I just didn't. It's not Cabin in the Woods.
True.
Which, in my opinion, is the best horror movie.
Is it? Okay.
It's my opinion.
So budget...
If you don't agree with me, join Discord.
Tell them what the better horror movies are. So it had a budget of 18 million and then at box office made 157 million.
That's not bad.
That's pretty damn good.
Yeah, that's not bad at all.
That's incredible.
That's like a New Zealand movie, except it would have been made for 18 grand and made like 1.8 million. 18 million.
Yeah, and by the way, just because we never said his name, Stephen King's son's name is Joe Hill. We just referred to him as Stephen King's son for earlier on, and I feel
if you
bad
said,
for him.
this was written by Joe Hill, you'd be like,
yes.
I don't know who that
I've
is.
never heard of Joe Hill. Yeah, it's a Joe Hill, Stephen King's son.
Why is he like Joe King?
Probably wanted to not be just in his father's shadow, maybe.
But then people will just instantly... That seems like a dumb financial decision.
No, but maybe it's an artistic decision rather than financial.
Well...
I think Hill must be... I can't remember. I think maybe his mother's maiden name or
I
something.
don't even think Stephen King's his real name.
I don't know, actually. No, because yeah.
Because a lot of writers have pseudonyms.
True. My stomach is making horrible noises, and I apologize if you can hear it on the... No, Stephen King is his name.
Okay. Who am I thinking of?
His children are Joe Hill, Owen King, and Naomi King.
Oh.
Yeah, Joseph Hillstrom King is his actual name, and he goes by pen name Joe Hill.
It's like how David Bowie wanted to be... not Johnny. What was his... His original stage name was someone from the Beach Boys?
Well, his actual name is David Jones.
Oh, yeah, so he's going to be Davy Jones.
Right, so, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but then he went as David Bowie, which is way better.
Yeah.
Have you got any other trivia or these ratings, something? Do your thing.
I don't know, I was trying to figure out what why Joe Hill changed his name. Did I have any other... The kid who played the sister in Black Phone, Madeline McGraw.
Yeah.
She was cast and then she was unable to actually shoot for the film because she was in something else. But they liked her performance so much when they did auditions that they literally postponed production so that she could play that girl.
Makes sense.
They were like, yeah, no, we can push this off. But the film was shot in only 33 days. That's a pretty short shoot.
You don't have to drag things out for like eons though.
Yeah.
I think it's the self-bloating thing that causes a lot of movies to go way over budget.
Right, is just stretching it out.
Yeah. Like I can understand why like things like Dunkirk and 1917 and Saving Private Ryan took, and Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit took,
very long years and years
to film. But yeah, like you can, like if you follow the easy 3 steps of how to make a movie by Kevin Smith, which is the wrong way to make a movie, for his first one anyway. He did it on weekends. Like, he did it when the store was closed, like, when he made Clerks.
Right, yeah.
And you don't have to spend, like, ages filming stuff. Like, it's interesting how they blow out their own budgets with the time that they spend filming. It'd be interesting to see how long between the actual filming they're doing now and the releases of the Avatar movies.
Well, they've already scheduled them all, so the first one is coming out very soon.
Christmas.
Yeah.
It's Christmas now. But I'm saying, like, that's all CG for the rest of it. It has to be, because if they've done all the filming,
right.
I say that with, like, the actors are wearing those cool suits, and their faces are getting recorded so they can dot map them
They're doing a Gollum.
Yeah. It'll be just interesting to see how much post-production takes.
Yeah. I think the only other note I had then was, I just thought it was fun. So the whole note was like that the grabber dons different, like a number of different creepy masks throughout the film, showing different portions of his face. They were designed by the prosthetic makeup artist Tom Savini, who did, I think, a lot of the Nightmare on Elm Street films.
Yeah.
But what I liked about this note was that it said Mason Thames, who played Finney, said that the first time he saw the mask on Ethan Hawke with Ethan Hawke's performance, he was genuinely terrified.
Yeah. Like, that is, to me, the standout part of that entire movie was just Ethan Hawke on screen.
Yeah.
And the problem that I had with the movie is he wasn't on screen enough.
Right. Yeah, that we didn't get enough. It was Ethan Hawke's idea apparently to have the grabber react and panic the way he did when the mask was taken off him.
Yeah.
And he also suggested the bit where he, after he is deceased, that he slumps his whole body into the hole.
Mm.
Those were Ethan Hawke suggestions. But
Have you seen Daybreakers?
have I seen No, I don't think I've seen Daybreakers. Doesn't
Sam Neill.
Oh, I do like Sam Neill.
I think. Was it the sequel? Was there a sequel?
I don't know.
I think Willem Dafoe's in it as well.
Oh, okay. Do we want to wrap up?
Yeah.
Okay. So, as we mentioned earlier in the podcast, we have now got a Discord server. The links for that will be in the show notes. So, if you want to join our Discord server, which we would encourage you to do, because we would like to talk to you.
Yeah.
We'd like to, get to know our listeners. So please do join our Discord server.
Doesn't matter where you're from, what language you speak, age, race, gender, ethnicity, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Join our Discord.
Join our Discord. We want to talk to you. So you can do that. The link will be in the show notes. Also, because I normally post this on Reddit and places, I'll put the link in those posts. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at @ittakes2_pod or on Twitter at @ittakes2pod. I think I've got those right around. I might have mixed them up. It's been a while. I'll have to refresh my memory for next episode, but I think that's correct. So I think that's pretty much it. We look forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, stay safe out there. Don't go near men with unmarked vans.
Don't buy a first generation iPhone and communicate with the dead.
Yeah.
Okay. Goodbye.
Bye.